Hey, Fran fam, welcome to another episode of Life in Style with Francyne. I am your host, Francyne Walker, and today we have an awesome guest who's going to talk we've got a lot to talk about. I can't even, I'm so excited. I was actually so excited I was in tears earlier. And it's like, Fran, you can't cry. You're going on camera later. So who I have with me today is Lakisha Watson-Moore. She is the founder of Bougie Black Girl, a blog that is devoted solely to Black women. She has probably close to 60,000 followers, and that is a feat in and of itself. So I'm excited to have Lakisha on, and without further ado, let's welcome Lakisha Watson-Moore. Hi, Lakisha.
Hi, Francyne. I'm so honored to be here. I'm excited.
I am too. When I've been following you for quite a while, and the reason I've been following you is because you do create a narrative that allows Black women to be their fullest selves. That's what you encourage. And that's something that is certainly needed. Talk about Bougie Black Girl, how you came up with the concept, and how you basically decided this was going to be your platform.
Well, thank you for asking. I first started, it was a random blog, not Bougie Black Girl, but something called Lavender Thoughts. It's something I just came up with. And then one day I had seen that Black women were being trashed pretty much in the media by Black male entertainers, but we were still supporting them. So I just got upset and I just started compiling a list together of what these gentlemen had said. And I decided, you know what, if we can go after racists and basically say we're not going to, use their services or go to their movies, we should feel the same way about Black women and men who engage in misogyny, even if they happen to be Black. So that day I decided to write something. I called my sister up. I called my late husband. I spoke to my late husband. He said, write it. You're so angry, write about it. And then my sister said, I said, Sinead, what should I do? And what should I call it? And she said, girl, you're bougie. I said, oh, perfect. Bougie Black Girl. And that's how Bougie Black Girl got started. And surprisingly, that single post got thousands and thousands of views. And to this day, I still see people sharing captions of what I've written 2013. So that, to me, that tells me that at least I had some sort of impact. And people know that misogyny against Black women is absolutely wrong. We're not going to tolerate it. People have made millions and millions off of it. We're not going to have it anymore.
Talk about what misogyny means, because I think sometimes that sounds very foreign for people. They don't really understand what that is, or they play like they don't. Talk about what that means.
I think they play like they don't. Everybody knows what misogyny is. It's hatred of women. Well, misogyny, a hatred of Black women. And that's what it's about. Hatred of Black women. I think misogyny has become completely acceptable. We see it in entertainment. We see it unfortunately, in hip hop. We see it on television. We see it in our movies. And it's become normalized. And my aim is to stop that. No Black woman and no Black girl should have to face those things. It shouldn't be normalized to abuse a Black woman. It's not funny. There's nothing funny about making fun of a Black woman. Malcolm X said the most unprotected woman in the world is the Black woman. And I'm saying we're not going to be unprotected anymore. If we have to protect ourselves, I'm going to do it.
And I see it time and time again. So to have a safe space as Bougie Black Girl is so needed to balance the plethora of websites, social media platforms that unfortunately are devoted to tearing down Black women.
Yes.
Which brings us to the topic of Black women erasure as it relates to police brutality. We've seen over the last 9 days since the murder of George Floyd, just a number of protests all over the world. And I see here and there that people, don't forget, Breanna Taylor, Breanna Taylor, Pamela Turner, Sandra Bland, Korryn Gaines, Atatiana Jefferson, Regis Korchinski Paquette, Toronto, which is kind of, because it's another country that's low key. But I remember who was thrown over the balcony by police. Allegedly. Let me add, allegedly. But those are just a percentage of the names. There's a list. There's another platform I follow, Our Lives Matter. And I think they were the ones that published a list as long as my arm. And so of women that have been murdered by the police since, I don't know, 1990 something. So, but you have not heard those names. As of today, we're becoming more aware. Well, some of us are becoming more aware of Black women erasure. And I've just seen different think pieces about how injurious it is for Black women who have been murdered by the police to be left out of the conversation. What are your thoughts on that?
All Blacks are men and all women are white, and some of us are brave. That exists. That statement exists for a reason. Unfortunately, when people think about racism, they center Black men, and they see Black women as an extension of Black maleness. Yes, Black men exist. Black women do exist. We face both sexism and racism, and this is a case of both sexism and racism. The erasure of Black women victims is misogynoir. It is absolute misogynoir. Black women, Breanna Taylor was murdered in March, and the people that murdered her, that came into her home, have not been arrested as of this moment. So that tells you there were no marches for her. No one said this could have been my daughter. All right, there were no hashtags until recently. Until people started talking about the disparity. All right. So to me, that tells you that people don't see us as victims of racism. They do not. And for some reason, they only believe that it's only Black men. We do exist. We deal with racism. We deal with sexism. We deal with domestic violence at higher rates than anyone else. We deal with Black women are murdered more than any other group of women in the United States. So that tells you something. That tells you something. We are dealing with a silent epidemic against Black women, and no one is talking about it because our lives to them do not matter. It doesn't matter. And that's unfortunate. We're on the front lines, and every March, Black Lives Matter was started by 3 queer Black women. All the organizations, all the work, all the effort, they're all led by women. And unfortunately, that hasn't been reciprocated in our community towards Black women and girls who are victims of violence.
Why do you think that is, Lakisha, that our community is so slow to embrace the sanctity or our sacred, to sacralize us as Black women and what we have to deal with? Why is that so hard to do when we actually birth a nation? Why is that not seen as important?
Because we raise our sons. We love our sons, but we raise our daughters. I believe that's what a lot of us are doing. We are in some ways, in many ways, I think we're not putting those responsibilities on our sons, but we're doing it to our daughters. And so we think, oh, she can take care of herself. Oh, she's going to be all right. Let me focus on my son who's going to be murdered by the police. Little do they know she could be murdered too. And it's unfortunate that there's a value placed on male life, in all races and all demographics, on male life than there is on female lives, even though we carry life when we give birth. We can give birth to ideas or children or business, but we do give birth, and it's unfortunate. It's always been like that. Sexism is older than racism. Unfortunately, we have to deal with both sexism and racism.
Yeah, and we get so much pushback. What do you think? Do you think the pushback comes from not just the lack of value, but the lack of, or the presence of a threat? Do you think we're perceived as a threat when we speak out and try and lift up the causes that are plaguing us as Black women?
I don't think that we're seen as a threat. I think that we're seen as mules. People think that we're supposed to do work for everyone else, but unfortunately, they're not going to reciprocate for us. If we don't focus on that work for them, then they become offended. That's what it is for me. That's what I believe. It's more of we're not working for them. We're not working for their interests. So we're doing something wrong. We're not focusing on what's important, which is them, and that's unfortunate. Self-preservation for all of us is so important, and Black women need to start centering ourselves because we are dealing with a silent epidemic of violence against us, whether it's from the police or whether it's from people we know and love.
Yeah,
we are dealing every day. Every 21 hours, a Black woman is murdered in the United States.
Yeah,
and that's unfortunate. No one talks about that. Like I said, there are no marches, there are no hashtags, there are no Facebook pages for that, except Our Lives Matter. That platform is absolutely important. I'm so grateful for it. But other than that, there aren't any platforms that center us.
So where do we go from here? And I guess that sounds kind of like repetitive or redundant because it's like, well, we're doing the work, but we can't let up. So what happens? Do we just keep talking and keep, because I love that statement. I've made up in my mind years ago, I was not going to be anybody's mammy, anybody's mule or martyr. And that made such a difference in the decisions that I've made, where even now today, just taking full responsibility for myself and centering my self-interest versus others' interests, because a lot of times that gratitude is not passed forward. And so, and into platforms like yours, I draw a lot of inspiration from Bougie Black Girl because I'm bougie. At least people always say to me, do people think you're bougie? It's like, I don't know. Do you think I'm bougie? But, and I know that's kind of a loaded question. I don't care. But that's those are people that are dealing with their own insecurities. And that's how I look at it, because they're looking to me and thinking what they're thinking. And it's like, no, I just think very highly of myself. And I know a confident Black woman can be seen as someone who is a threat. And so you get this enrage or this onslaught of the social media barbs. And, I saw somebody posted something. We're opening in Michigan. The beauty shops are going to be opening on the 15th. Everybody's like, hallelujah. Me, I don't care because I've got about 50 wigs. So I am a wig slayer. Okay.
That's right, baby.
So I'm like, oh, they're opening. That's great. I haven't been to a beauty shop and I don't know when. And I used to go every Friday, get the Toni Braxton cut, the Anita Baker cut every Friday. Do you hear me?
Yes.
So that was back in the day. Now it's like, I can't remember the last time I've been to a beauty salon, but someone said, and it was a guy, and he said, okay, guys, the women, the salons are opening up. You can go get your bundles. And I thought, here we go, and that
but we never talk about their 360 waves and their wave caps, right?
Or the vegan spray. Is it spray?
Right. No, you don't do that.
Hairlines, and that's the thing. And not that I am talking about, throwing barbs at brothers, because that's not my. First of all, I think when you are confident in yourself, it's really kind of hard to. What's the word? It's really kind of hard to down someone else.
Yes.
When you feel amazing, when you wake up feeling good about yourself, and it doesn't mean you won't have good days. It doesn't mean, bad days. It doesn't mean you don't have insecurities, but you know how to keep those in check, right?
Yes.
So when you feel good about yourself, it makes it very hard. You are hard pressed to tear someone else down, and
Amen.
that's something that I always believe when I see people downplaying or trying to make women feel bad for wanting to present themselves to the world in the best way they know, not you. They know. So why is that something that is frowned upon for? And we know the thread is misogyny, but why is it so difficult for us to rise and to walk in our glory, because we're goddesses, in and of itself, and once you take that mindset on, once you begin to believe that, you can see things for what they are, correct?
Yes. Oh yes. I think everyone's afraid of greatness, and everyone's afraid of our greatness. Once we realize how powerful and how beautiful we are, we're unstoppable. And that's scary for a lot of people. And I can't wait until Black women wake up and finally see that we are heck of awesome women. Look how far we've come. Look where we came from, and look how far we've gone. College, businesses, start up companies, leading 500 companies. That's incredible. And see, that's the thing that they're afraid of, us knowing our power. So they find little things to tear us down. If it's a makeup and it's hair and it's weave and it's a big butt and you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, your degrees won't keep you warm. Yes, my degrees will keep you warm. It keeps the light on, baby. That's what it does. So it's little things like that to tear you down, to make you feel insecure, to make you not compete, to make you not be the best you can be. Because if you're the best you can be, everybody else has to rise up to that occasion too. So I think it's really about taking us a peg down. And I'm not letting anyone do that to me or anyone else.
And that's what I love. I can't say enough about the platform, which is probably why you have close to 60,000 followers, which is a feat in and of itself. So you must be doing something right. Because I find that on social media, it's voluntary, it's by choice. Yes. You can scroll past, you can go to another site. That's the great thing. We are not controlled, and we are not expected to subject ourselves to something that doesn't serve us. So when I saw what that guy posted, and he had posted things in the past, and it's always, something, a little dig towards Black women, whether it's makeup, hair, anything, whatever it is. And I've seen different people post pictures of women in media and their hair and it's like, and that day was just the day I decided to delete them, because it was just like, I felt lighter. People have been blessed.
Yes, block them. You just block them all. Block them all.
Yeah, because
you don't need that in your space. You do not.
No, and I felt lighter. I mean, you find that sometimes that's part of your social media self-care.
Yes.
So we talked about the erasure of, and we just have to keep talking. We just have to keep talking about Breanna. We have to keep talking about Atatiana. Because when I saw the George Floyd, when Mr. Floyd was murdered, and I felt bad, but I also felt like I had a little bit of whataboutism. I did, because when the uproar came, and I thought about it, and I was having a conversation with my good girlfriend, and I said, first of all, I'm sick of the hashtags. I'm sick of us being hashtags. But what I'm also sick of is Breanna was in March.
Yes.
March. This is June. That is April, May, June. 90 days later, mind you, no charges have been brought against the murderers' cops. Yes. I did my protest online. I with my pen. I called. The voicemail was full. But I think, do you think it's necessary for us to keep having these conversations and to keep those names before us? Because we are the ones that are going to do the work. It seems to me that, unfortunately, it's not going to be a brother. It's not going to be a white woman. It's not going to be anyone but us that says, hey. And so, but I was having this conversation with my girlfriend, and she said, a lot of times it's not documented. So there's no uproar for us to have because we didn't see it. And I felt sad, and I got what she was saying. It made sense, but I felt sad because it's like, oh, and in my snarky way, I said, so out of sight, out of mind? Like, we really need evidence we need actual evidence, because typically I don't watch any of the slaughter videos. I can't. It's just too much. But do we actually need evidence to care and charge ahead, and protest in whatever way you choose to? Do we need evidence? Do you think we need evidence?
We had evidence with Korryn Gaines, and no one did anything.
Remember they turned off the video. They turned the video off. Remember? So they sure did. So there's that argument. So it's like, no, I think we're using that as an excuse to downplay once again the value of our lives. Would you say that's true?
I agree. I absolutely agree. I think that Black women are held to higher standards. We have to we have to look a certain way. We have to act a certain way. We have to come from a certain background for our lives to matter. Whereas our counterparts, they can come from any background. They don't have to prove themselves worthy of being protected. They already are. Someone will march for them, but we have to. Black women victims, Black female victims, Black female child victims have to prove themselves worthy of being marched for, worthy of having a hashtag, worthy of existing. And it's unfortunate, but it's true. And what I tell people is, I'm like you. I'm tired of the hashtags. I am tired of the marching. I believe now is the time for political action. And I think people should become active, especially Black women, should become active in politics. One way is to run for office. Another way is to volunteer on a campaign. They can come volunteer with me on the campaigns that I work for. You have to become active. No more marching. No more hashtags. It's time for public policy. Now is the time to do it. The only way, we're the only ones that's going to make it happen. Black women are. And that starts by running for office and getting active in politics.
Because it's those laws that are definitely going to make a difference and hold us accountable. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And without those laws, without us making those laws, we will not be at the table making the laws. So we have to become active in politics. And that's one of the reasons why I became active in politics. I grew up at a time where a man could beat his wife and the police would take him around the corner. And that was before the Violence Against Women's Act that Joe Biden created many years ago. But prior to that, that's how it was. And after that, men were arrested for domestic violence. And that made a big deal. That made a big deal and impact on my life too. So I want women to know, especially Black women, that they must become active in politics, show up to the meetings, run for office, hold your politicians accountable, volunteer, like I said, with me if they want to, because I'm doing it from Michigan. So get active and get involved.
I like to think of you, and I think I put that somewhere. I mentioned that you were a politico. Talk about your volunteer work and what you're doing, because we've got to talk about a little bit about the election, which I know this is a great favorite topic of yours, and how it relates to, you just said we have to run for office, which brings us to, it's time we get some women into those higher offices. Nothing against, shout out to Mayor-elect Ella Jones, who was the first Black mayor to be elected in Ferguson, Missouri. Considering their history, their racist history, that is a feat in and of itself. And Ella, I hope to talk to you.
Yes.
A little plug. So, but talk about what you're doing, and the upcoming presidential election that we know is very important.
Well, I'm currently, prior to this, I was a field organizer for the Mike Bloomberg campaign. I'm currently a field organizer for the Michigan Democratic Party, and I'm working on the Senate campaign for Gary Peters and the presidential campaign for Vice President Joe Biden. And I've been active in politics for many years. I believe I was the first African-American female chair of the Veterans Caucus for the Young Democrats of America. And so politics has been super important to me. I've been doing this for many moons since I was a young girl. And I want to see more Black women run for office. My hero happens to be Shirley Chisholm. She's my mentor in my mind. I wish she was alive today, but she was a very special woman to me. She was fierce, powerful, and just brave. And we need more of that in office, unbought and unbossed women, especially Black women.
You say brave because we know it took a lot for her as a Black woman during that particular time to stand up, because a vocal Black woman is very much considered a threat and is met with a lot of opposition, both physically, mentally, verbally. So brave is a good word. Have you thought about running for office?
Yes, I have, but I like to do my dirt on Facebook in private.
Run, Pusha, run.
Being a public servant is an absolute honor and a privilege. And I hope maybe one day I will consider it. But right now I'm enjoying my private life and, taking care of my sons and seeing one off to college and watching the other one go through high school. So I'm enjoying that right now.
Yeah. So let's talk about, some would say Uncle Joe. Some would say VP Joe Biden. Some would say President, forever our President, Barack Obama's right-hand guy. All kinds of different things. And I'm seeing a lot of different rhetoric about not voting for him, and that's their choice. And, bringing in a third candidate. Do we really have that kind of time?
I like to tell people, how did that work out in 2016? How did that work out in 2016? The same thing that President Obama went through, the same thing that Hillary Clinton went through, is now what Joe Biden is going through. It's the same organized campaign over and over and over again. And people have to see it. This is the same crowd that told us President Obama's birth certificate wasn't in Hawaii. And, these are the same people that said that Hillary Clinton was some sort of evil monster. Yeah. All right. Now we're getting this stuff here. People have to recognize that this is an ongoing campaign against Democratic candidates. And it's up to them to go out there and research the candidates and make a decision. My hope is that they support Joe Biden for vice president, and in Michigan, and Gary Peters for Senate.
Now, what about the interview with Charlemagne the God? Not my words, but what about his interview that prompted Joe Biden to say what he said about if you vote for Trump, you ain't Black?
Right.
What do you think about that?
Unlike our current president, Joe Biden, Vice President Biden apologized. And that takes a lot of humility. It takes a lot of decency to admit you're wrong, and he's willing to make right. And so after him doing that, once he apologized, it was good enough for me, because if he was good enough to be the first Black president's vice president, he's darn good enough to be my president now.
Do you think that do you think, in your opinion, and How do I want to say this? Because I know that you're campaigning for Mr. Biden. Do you think he is willing to, or he should not assume that it's already in the pan, or he's already a shoo-in, that there's definitely some issues he needs to take into consideration as it relates to the collective Black vote?
Oh, he knows that. He absolutely knows that, and he acknowledged it over and over and over again. And even in his apology with his past votes, he apologized to Anita Hill. Unlike other folks, he has admitted that he was wrong, and that's what we need in a president today. We need someone, unlike the person in the office, the gentleman in office. We need someone who is willing to sit down and listen. We need someone who is actually open to our ideas. If you think the gentleman in office is open to our ideas, you have been missing the past 4 years.
Yeah.
You have been missing it. So
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, the occupant
call them occupant.
The occupant at the fenced-in White House is currently, I noticed he has a disdain. If Massagina was a person,
yes,
that's a person that's exactly what that illustration would be, because every female Black journalist that has posed a question, and I know there were others that were not Black that have posed a question, the Asian journalist, but there seems to be a disdain, a very obvious disdain for women, from calling them dogs, calling them nasty. What we really don't have a choice. And I don't want to seem like I'm campaigning for anybody else, but at the same time, we're in the 11th hour. And do you think it's important that we get behind someone and get behind them strong?
I do. Now our country's at a crisis. We have to decide whether we're going to deal with the last 4 years and we're going to continue that, or whether we're going to head in a new direction. And that new direction, hopefully, is more of what we dealt with during the Obama years instead of what we're doing during the Trump years. The past 4 years, we've had a president that has called for violence against protesters, people expressing their constitutional right to protest. We've had the president has said that the folks out in Charlotte, North Carolina, during that demonstration were good people, and they were white supremacists.
Yeah.
If you think that Black women will have a seat at the table with that gentleman, you have been missing the past 4 years, and you're sadly mistaken. He has a distinct disdain for Black women, and that tells you we are a very unprotected group, and he knows it. He knows he can get away with it. Yeah. He knows he can get away with it, and he has. Could you picture President Obama talking to anyone, especially a non-Black woman, that way and getting away with it? Absolutely not. But this gentleman has. So if you want to tolerate 4 more years of misogynoir against Black women who stand up to this man, then vote for him. But if you want change, if you want a seat at the table, if you want an opportunity to even elect the first Black woman vice president, because he might just do that, I say support Joe Biden. At least we have a seat at the table. At least we have someone who's willing to listen. At least we have someone who is willing to compromise. We may not agree on everything, but at least we have an opportunity to be heard and have some sort of say in public policy.
Let's talk about a black woman VP.
I hope so. I hope so.
Does it seem as if we're being teased? Who do you see as viable picks?
You dare. I love Kamala Harris. I love Stacey Abrams. I love Val Demings. I love Susan Rice. We have just a plethora of Black women talent, of brilliance, of just extensive backgrounds. They're just fabulous, a full bench of Black women that he can pick from. And my hope is that he chooses one. And if he doesn't, I'll still support him because I want him to win. But if he does, I'm going hard. And I told people I'm going to be so obnoxious. I'm going hard because, imagine, I remember when President Obama was elected and I sat down and I had my sons in my arms and they only remember a Black male president. That's what they know. So they know that they can have an opportunity to, if they wanted to become a Black president, they could. Now imagine how little girls would feel, little Black girls would feel if they see a Black woman who's vice president and may potentially become president. That would be life-changing. It just makes my heart just flutter with joy to think about all the little Black girls who say, you know what, I'm going to run for office. I'm going to run for mayor. I'm going to run for senator. If she can do it, I can do it too.
Why do you think the default always goes to forever our First Lady, Michelle Obama? I hear that a lot, and I always vehemently argue, leave her alone.
Yes.
Let her be. Why do you think that is a default versus the viable candidates that you just named?
Because she's super likable. That's what it is. She's just, and they know her. I mean, we had her in our living rooms for 8 years, and she's been nothing but graceful, kind, dignified. She raised 2 beautiful girls. She gave up her career for her husband. And we can all, in some ways, identify with giving up a lot of women, especially Black women, can identify with giving up some part of our dream so that someone else could succeed. And I think that's why we really, really identify with her. And she's just likable, and we know her.
But do you really feel that she probably doesn't want to?
Yeah, I think she's sick of us.
She doesn't deserve her.
We're like the visitor who's been at her house all day, and she's like, all right, it's time for you to go. I'm ready for you to leave. Leave her, like you said, leave her alone. Let her. She's just thriving during the books, and leave her alone. If she wants to run for office, I'm like, okay, I'm down. And, the squad is on. We're gonna call up the squad.
Because I'm like the cheerleader. It's like, let her be. I
am.
Because I said to someone, I said, stop. Don't mule her. She's had 8 years of America, 3 Ks, and she's thriving in her current role and still will be able to enact change without being in office. Now, I'm with you. If she does choose to run, okay, I got to get behind it. It's like, okay, if you say so. But we also know that being in the office, especially in the presidential position, can age you.
But President Obama, you see, he went from jet black to gray.
So at the end of the day, it's still a servant role, and we welcome anyone that wants to serve in that role, because we certainly need people like Michelle Obama, like Stacey Abrams, Val Demings, Kamala Harris. What's her name? The last one you said. Susan Rice. Yes. Yeah. You need someone like that, especially in the VP position, that can take the reins and move into very strategically, of course, the presidential role. So, but do you believe we're ready?
Oh, yeah. We were ready for a guy named President Barack Obama. we should be ready for one. I'll never forget when he first ran for office, and people were like, who? Who is this guy? Yeah. Who is state senator? But when he won in Iowa, I think it changed everything. He ran a great campaign, and if you can run presidential campaigns, I'm sure are just a long, hard slog. And if you can do that, you can definitely become president. It is very difficult. It is a very extensive journey. And like I said, I know that whoever the VP is, and I'm hoping she's a Black woman, she's going to do a heck of a job. Like I said, we have a full bench of qualified, brilliant, absolutely fantastic Black women. And if he picks one, I'm just going to scream.
Yeah. He seems to be surrounding himself by some Black women that are very notable, from his advisor. I can't think of her name right now. Yes.
Mm-hmm. She's fabulous.
Yes. Yes.
Who I love to, my hero.
So hopefully Simone is in his ear, and he's receptive, because we definitely need someone that looks like us, as we talked about, at the table. Now, speaking of being at the table, what do you think about the companies that are now, first of all, what do you think about the protests that are going on around the world?
I definitely understand why they're happening, and they need to happen. I wish it happened for Black women too, but this is a start. Anti-Blackness is a global problem. My hope is that misogyny also is recognized as a global problem too. So I'm so grateful for those people who are protesting. I want them to be safe.
Yes.
I want them to take care of themselves, wear their masks, make sure they wash their hands after they interact with people, and if they see danger, stay away from it.
Yeah.
You know, just be safe. Be aware that there are saboteurs out there that will try to disrupt a peaceful protest. And if, as long as they're expressing in the United States, their constitutional right, I have zero problem with it. And in fact, I'm grateful for it. Now, after that, you have to turn those actions, those marches into action. And that means registering to vote, getting active in politics, because marching is one thing. Without action afterwards, you're
just a party.
Right.
You know, a march.
Yeah. Right.
And, and this is not in any way degrading the actions of the protesters when I say that, because my God, I certainly appreciate who's out there on the front lines. But I thought about that too, where it's like, okay, now we need strategy. Now we need action beyond
public policy.
Yes. And I'm also noticing that different companies are coming out, you know, and it's so funny because it's like they had to come out and say Black Lives Matter.
Except when they're on their corporate boards.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. It's like yeah, let's move past the performative politics into some real action, because anybody can craft. Heck, I could craft it for you. You know.
Yeah. Let me see your upper management. Let me see who is your CEO, who's your CIO.
Yeah.
Let me see your board of directors.
Yeah.
And then let me know how much Black Lives Matter. That also matters too. Let me see your wage. Let me see your wages, and are they all the same based on job performance?
Yeah,
with Black folks and people who happen not to be Black.
Yeah,
that's what matters to me. It's
that wage gap for us.
Yeah,
it's quite a gap
for every white man's dollar.
Yeah,
60 cents.
So those are the kinds of things those are the kinds of things beyond your social media statements, beyond, you know, placing a banner across your Amazon, your Amazon, you know.
Let me see board Amazon. You just tried to fire an African American person who was against your not wearing masks in New York.
Yeah. Okay. Remember that?
That tells you how much Black Lives Matter. It didn't matter that much to you. You tried to fire the gentleman.
So now, do you think the protests are causing companies to scramble and be on the right side of history, at least as it relates to putting something out there that, see, you know, and throwing money into, I call it hush money.
Yes, you're into certain organizations. I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree with that. I want to see action, and that starts in their offices, in their buildings. Who are they hiring? We're more than who's the upper management, who's making the hiring decisions. Let's see, is there comparative wages among everyone who's working in the same position? I want to see that. Those are the changes that are needed. If you want to invest in, I want to see more. You see tech companies coming out and saying Black Lives Matter, but you guys aren't investing in Black tech firms that need funding. They're looking for crowdsourcing or crowdfunding. You're not doing that, especially with Black women firms. Black women have to come up usually with the money themselves, whereas other companies, they can go to a big funder and say, hey, could you give me money? And they'll give it to them because they believe in their product. Yeah. So that tells you there is a huge gap. If Black Lives Matter, start investing community development, economic development in Black communities. And that means talking about tax cuts for small Black business owners, giving incentives to companies to move into distressed neighborhoods or neighborhoods that happen to be predominantly African American.
Sure.
Giving more money to for Black African American students to go into in the medical field or into law or into technology, things like that. That's super important for companies to think about instead of just saying Black Lives Matter. Yeah. Where you invest your money in is a reflection of your values. Are you hiring Black contractors?
Right. Yeah. And also overhauling a work structure or a corporate culture, not just having pizza and doing a quick team builder with some Smurf balls or whatever those things are called, throwing the ball across the room and saying, okay, and then going home at 2:00, after we had a great kumbaya session, but really overhauling a mindset that enables white people to think they're better than Black people, that our lives are less valuable. So those are some uncomfortable workshops. Yeah. It's not just about, bringing in someone that's going to pacify your workforce, but it's going to it's going to be uncomfortable. Do you think companies are ready to do that? Or are they going to shy away from that and just be okay with their fun just for times like this?
I think they're going to change because we're making racism expensive. And once racism becomes expensive, once it becomes a financial loss, then they realize, oh, we can't do this anymore. So it's important that we all decide if a company is doing something that's racist, boycott it, don't use it, don't buy anything from it. And that shows our $1 trillion power, Black American power, and our Black dollar. So they know how our demographic spends, they know how much money we have, and they know if we don't buy their products, their company will shut down.
Do you think money is the equalizing force, or is this attributed just to us being in a capitalistic society? That's why no one wants to have a conversation about reparations, because that equalizes us.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think money. I'm not one of those people that do all the huggy feely lovey stuff. I want to see action, and I think that there's a huge wealth gap. And when we're talking about reparations, I tend to believe in it. A lot of people don't. That's their perspective, but I believe that some groups had a 400-year head start. And because of that, there needs to be some sort of addressing of that problem. My ancestors worked this land for free. They were stolen from their countries in another continent and brought here and worked for free. And after that, they were sharecroppers. And after that, you have now the prison industrial complex where you have Black individuals working for pennies on the dollar for billion-dollar companies. So yes, I believe in reparations, and we need to make that gap. But I also believe that African Americans have to start spending within our own community. The dollar only circulates one time in our community, and that's something that we choose to do. We have some sort of responsibility. In other communities, they circulate 20 times. Prior to what happened in Greenwood, in Oklahoma, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the dollar circulated 20 times. So yes, it can be done. We do have some sort of responsibility. We have $1 trillion in spending power. We can choose to use it within our communities.
So, Kanita says talk is cheap. My girl Christy, hey girl, says this time requires a multi-pronged approach.
Absolutely. And I believe that multi-pronged approach is politics, getting active in politics, and economic and community development and investments within our community, and demanding that those people in power in politics start creating incentives for companies and businesses, small Black businesses and large Black businesses, to invest in our communities.
Sure. And this is a prime time, given the pandemic that is indeed real. where a lot of businesses were eliminated or not given an opportunity to get any access to the 2.3 trillion, or was it 3 trillion funds that were supposedly allocated for businesses, citizens. And you had Ruth Chris, Marriott Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
These are
billion-dollar companies.
You know, all companies that I'm sure the occupant is affiliated with, but you had those companies taking a lot of that money that would have been allocated and should have been allocated for businesses. When these are the businesses that have, that's their income.
Yes.
That's their way of stimulating the economy. So when you're talking about stimulating the economy and pushing people back out into a sick, dangerous environment to stimulate the economy, you know, by giving them $1,200. I mean, $1,200, that's lunch money, you know?
That's somebody's rent.
That's somebody's rent, exactly. And then some. So it's like, how is that stimulating the economy? How is that stimulating the economy when businesses who required foot traffic, that was their way of doing business, and you shut them down to flatten the curve and keep people safe? That shuts down, and everyone can't necessarily rely on online ways. There are some that have pivoted successfully. I know a few, but there are some that, you know, the foot traffic is what kept them afloat. Yes. So this is an opportune time. Would you agree that while we're talking about Black Lives Matter, Black businesses matter?
Yes.
Those are the ones that are going to stimulate the economy. Like, I think it's great that we have a list, you know, different white influencers are putting out these lists of who to go to that's Black. You know, that's great, you know, and I got that list. I got that list too. But we also need to patronize those businesses to keep them afloat, to keep them in business, because a lot of them, unfortunately, are going to, hopefully they don't, but some might, because it's just too much to recover from this pandemic. And now we've got the protest where some businesses were affected just as much as the pandemic, you know, businesses. So we got to move past the performative measures, because, I mean, that's cute, but we already know, you know, that's not enough.
That's right. That's right. We all have some sort of responsibility, and in many ways we can, like I said, make some active change. If we had a seat at the table, do you think that Marriott, if we had a different president, do you think that Marriott would have gotten billions of dollars? Come on. Do you think Ruth Chris would have gotten millions of dollars? No, because he took care of his folks. So those folks are taken care of while everybody else is left out in the cold. That's why it's imperative that we all get active in politics. That is why it's imperative that you show up, show out, vote, make sure you're registered to vote, show up at community meetings. But if you don't want to run for office, think about working on a candidate's campaign that you agree with, whose policies that you agree with. Hold your politicians accountable. Show up, show out, be active, and get involved.
Sure. Wow. One other thing, we talked about your blog and how you grew your blog. How long did it take for you to grow your blog to almost 60,000?
I started in 2013.
Okay.
In 2013. So it's been some change, but it's been well worth it. I've enjoyed every moment of it. I've had some good times and I had some tough times. And one thing I realized is a lot of those folks, they were, after my husband died, they were so supportive and so kind. And I received so many positive messages, and they were telling me how much what I said impacted them. I was like, oh my God, you don't know what you're doing for me right now. So yeah, it's been one of the greatest blessings. And I feel like I found my purpose, and that's to be an advocate for Black women and Black girls.
Do you find that to be a challenge to have a platform that is exclusively for Black women? Because I know a lot of times when there are platforms that are for Black women, that are centered for Black women, that others feel excluded and offended.
Yes, they're offended because we're not censoring them. And they're so used to us censoring them that it becomes offensive when we censor ourselves. And so, yes, it has been tough. You have a lot, and unfortunately, you have a lot of Black women who still think that, censor other folks too. And they don't see themselves as being worthy or, of attention and focus, or we'll talk about us later. No, we're going to deal with us now.
We don't have the time.
Right, exactly.
We don't have a lifetime to continue to ascribe to a pick-me mentality.
Yes. No one's going to put us first. No one is. Malcolm X told us years ago. He told our community years ago. And unfortunately, it's still happening today. Yeah. So we have to center ourselves. In order for us to get to where we need to be, we have to put ourselves first, because no one else is going to protect us. No one else is going to put us first except us. And we've been told that over and over and over again.
So the takeaway and the call to action is, for us as Black women, and anyone else who wants to be an ally, is to be relentless in our causes and be active and proactive in politics. Correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. You got to get active. And if you're interested, please feel free to email me or call me or whatever. And let me know, because I would love to show other Black women how to do this. You have to get involved and get active. That's the only way our issues are going to be on the forefront. That's the only way, people start censoring us. They think that, unfortunately, we have in our community, everything centers around male Black men.
Yeah.
And, we have our own issues: maternal death rates, domestic violence, Black women being murdered. 91% of Black women who are murdered by guns. Issues like that we don't talk about. And like I said, it's a silent epidemic of Black women being murdered every single day. And we don't see it in the news. We don't, because it's so normalized. And I'm tired of normalizing it. Something has to be done. And the only way we can do that is to get active, get involved in politics, hold yourself accountable, go vote, decide to run for office, because I'm going to make you run. You know what? If you want to be trained, I can train you. That's what I really want us to get involved in, making public policy.
So am I hearing, Keisha, that you're going to have some kind of virtual workshop on activism, political activism?
I can teach people how to do this after the campaign's over, but I would love to teach Black women. And there are other organizations out there that does the same thing.
Sure.
Teach Black women how to run for office, how to file, all those steps that Black women need to take to run for office. Yes, I have no problems teaching other Black women to do it.
Okay. So we talked about the silent epidemic, and the best way, it sounds to me, is to speak up and keep talking and keep talking, supporting platforms like your own, having these conversations with influencers, policymakers, in staying informed. And yes. I really appreciate you. I follow you. I'm proud that I know so many awesome individuals virtually, and I feel connected, because that's what social media does. Eventually you get into the habit of, there's certain people that it's like you're rooting for. You're one of them. And I just thought, we got to have this conversation, because it just hurt my heart. And like I said, I was having this conversation with my girlfriend. I said, why are we always in the forefront? I'm not against protesting. I support those that are protesting. But we also have daughters. We not just have sons. You and I are boy moms.
Yes.
At the same time, I see the importance of recognizing the importance. I just said it. I see the importance of my niece, who's 12.
Yes.
And this to protect her. There, protect the other little girls. As I was working with Pretty Brown Girls, it's some of the things that they're dealing with as little girls.
Yeah, colorism. They deal with colorism. They deal with racism. They deal with texturism. They deal with all those things that we dealt with years ago.
Yeah, and I remembered being bullied in high school because I wanted to remain a virgin. And it's like bullied by people that looked like me. So, I'm not so much like black, white. I'm more character. Show me your character. And then we're good. If you show me your character and it's right there up front, okay. I really do appreciate you joining us today. This has been great, and I knew it would be. Any final words you want to add before we close the show?
Sure. If you want to follow me, I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/Bougie Black Girl. Excuse me.
That's okay.
And if you're interested in phone banking in the state of Michigan, which I definitely need it, like I said, I'm the field organizer. You can contact me at Watson-Moore at onecampaignmi.com.
Okay, and I'll put that in the link so they can have it. Thank you once again. I know I initially told you, it might be 30 to 45 minutes. I already knew we were going to, because we could talk about this in perpetuality, forever, because this has been going on forever. So we need to keep having those conversations. But I appreciate you for taking the time to sit with me on Life and Style with Francyne, and just have a wonderful day. I know I see you're doing great things, and you're going to continue to do great things. And that makes my heart glad, because it's all for us. And so I appreciate you. Your followers appreciate you and what you're doing, your spirit, the things you've overcome as a result of being a widower. I see you training for marathons and working out 2-3 times a day. Go. Certainly an inspiration for us to practice self-care. Thanks, Kanita. Thanks, Christy. They said great show, ladies. So thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you deciding to share with us today. And I will see you soon.
Thank you, Francyne. Bye.
Talk to you. Bye-bye. Thank you guys for tuning in to Life and Style with Francyne. That was a great show, and I knew it would be. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, drop a line at lifeandstylewithfrancine@gmail.com. Follow us on YouTube, as well as my website, www.francinewalker.com, so you don't miss out on our next guest. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Mwah.